Hey, I'm Jonathan Albin. This is Nyko's RPG. Welcome to the Game Master Soapbox. And today I have to tell you right from the get-go, do not watch this video. I repeat, do not watch this video, because if you watch this video, then you will understand why it is you shouldn't be playing role-play games right now. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't be having any measurable enjoyment from your life at all. And I'm going to point out the reasons why we simply have got to get rid of such entertainment forms right now. And so stick with us, but make sure you like and subscribe and all of that, because it lets the algorithm know you're part of our audience. So I want to point it out to you, but I am warning you that they get more strident as they go. So make sure you do not watch not a stitch of this video, not a second, unless you're going to watch all of it.
Absorbing damage is the name of the game. From the claws of monsters or the heat from a ball of flame, or strength in numbers is a roll of the dice.
Hello again, I am Jonathan Albin, and this is Nyko's RPG. And yeah, I do hope that you do watch this, but I understand that we really do need to talk about these subjects. And I have to start right at the beginning with what happened to us when I was a child. Now, granted, that was a half a century ago, but when I was a kid, the idea that parents enjoyed their kids and people got together to play games together, it was a common occurrence. Far fewer people spent their nose stuck to a screen like we do now, and there were more things in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in the philosophy of the world. So we're going to be going through and breaking down what's happened in the world, why you shouldn't be watching videos like this, why you shouldn't be enjoying yourself, because that is what the world has taught us to do. We're going to talk a lot about how we shouldn't do something, because I have a hard time saying that. We should all over ourselves, and this is going to be some examples of that. As we go along, they're going to become more extreme, so stay till the end. I think you kind of see where we're going here. So one of the first things to realize is that the culture of the United States, and I would say the majority of the civilized world, is that the concepts and ideas that we have as children can be outlandish, can be beyond the pale, and therefore we are cajoled, instructed, sometimes in rather extreme ways, to get past the imaginative phase, get beyond the creative part of our lives, and get down to business, because we're supposed to grow up. Now, as a young man growing up, I had the advantage of being rather precocious. I've always been on the clever side, and yes, as Sheldon would say, I've been tested, and yes, okay, Mensa is a thing. Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is that we're told to get past that imaginative, creative phase and get ourselves to work, because we have to worry about our entire lives, starting at arguably one of the places where we are the most creative, and we have to therefore get past that and get into the, quote, serious work of being an adult. Now, there are reasons to build a good work ethic, and I can tell you I definitely developed that in all the years that I was growing up. I did learn how to buckle down, be serious, get work done. But this process of doing so doesn't require us to stop being creative. It doesn't require us to put away the imaginative in our world, and yet that's what our culture really programs us to do. And we have, from as long as I remember, and perhaps there are people who would counter this argument by saying that the seriousness of life is, so threatening, as I think Schopenhauer says there are monsters outside, and we have to be aware that those monsters are here to destroy us, and we have to be serious. But this positing that we have to get rid of the imaginative to do so to me is a bit of horse hockey. But I love the musical group Rush, and one of the things that they say in one of their songs, it's called When We Are Young, and they say, when we're young, we have to learn that we're only immortal for a limited time. And to which I say, why? What is the reason for thinking about our mortality? I'm going to talk about a couple of subjects that hurt my heart. In 1997, my daughter died in a car accident. And she was only 9 years old, and the world doesn't do nice things to nice people all the time. There are crappy things and awful things that happen to people all of the time. But why does that mean we have to stop living? Why is it we have to stop considering the possible futures? It's the opposite. We should be constantly thinking about what's beyond, because we are here only for a limited time, and we will eventually not be able to consider those enjoyable parts of our life anymore. As a matter of fact, my counter to that is Weird Al Yankovic's song, I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead. You know, there are going to be points in my life where I cannot do, or I cannot imagine, or cannot create. And so in these times when my brain is still functioning, I should be spending as much time in that fictional reality, that possible future, rather than locking myself into a routine or a rut that undermines that very possibility. Furthermore, and this one I have to point at my Christian brethren and sistren, as my grandfather would say. The reality is that we are told, even within the Christian lifestyle, that we should put away childish things. Now, I think that word childish there is kind of poignant, because what we did in the years that I've grown up, and the way I've seen parents treat their children, and how people have looked at imagination, is they didn't put away the childish things. And what I'm referring to as childish are the bickering, the pettiness, the finger pointing, the egregious animosities that children do. It is true that children can be very cruel, but as I can't remember his name right now. There was a famous guy, I wanted to say Lawrence Wolf, but that's not right. And I'll think of it here in a second. But he said, kids say the darndest things. And the innocence of a child is that they don't know what they don't know. And I think when it says to put away the childish things, we are supposed to be putting away the bickering, because it's profitless. We need to put away the finger pointing, because, as the old adage says, for every finger you point at somebody else, there's 3 at least pointing back at you. And if you're like me, your thumb as well, because it triggers backwards. But the point is that when we put away the childish things of life, does not mean that we have to put away imagination, creativity, spontaneity, or any of those things that define what it is to be childlike. But it refers to those things that are unprofitable, that children grow up and have to develop in order to make it through the difficult parts of childhood. And so we're constantly berated for being creative. I remember when I was a kid, it was always, oh, Johnny's got such an active imagination. He's just everywhere because his brain doesn't shut down. And that's true. But our culture says, put that away. Stop thinking about the silly. Stop thinking about the unreasonable. Think only about what is going to make your life have meaning. And so we want to get away from that. We want to look at other possibilities, as you'll see. Another thing that happens is that adults, especially those that have already, quote, survived their childhood, ultimately start to use "because I said so" as a final retort when dealing with children. There is an issue of not so much control, but respect of your adult elders, or your respect for people that have discipline and guidance over you. But this concept that we have to accept the because there, but we can't use the because in our fictional life, the play time of our lives, is counterintuitive. And this concept that you have to accept what is being established upon you by others becomes the driving force in many people's lives. They do what they're told because it's what they were told, and they can't imagine living outside of that. And this is where I say that people are afraid of tabletop roleplay games, and they're afraid of this creativity, because it takes us places in our minds that are outside of the parameters of this life. And that is seen by many to be the greatest threat in the world, to be free of those boundaries and limitations that because have placed on us, puts us in a place that makes us dangerous, because we are now operating outside of the parameters of the because that was foisted upon the people around us. Well, because has become so important, we have to therefore consider anything that is imaginary not only to be beyond the pale as far as comprehension or reality, we have to make it non-existent. People take that, put childish things away, and they hammer that to the point where don't think of outside the box. Don't think about what you might do if you were single. Don't think about what you might do if your children were at home. Instead, think only about what is tangible and real. And what this does, and I can tell you from experience, what this does is it sets you up to be pounded into the ground and pummeled into submission by the rest of the world. And for this reason, the argument followed the because, stay within the lines, becomes the more powerful message, because we have experienced this. We have seen people who have gotten pummeled into the ground. The loss of my daughter led to the loss of my marriage because my spouse lost respect for me. And I mean, there's a billion other things that can go into that. But the stark matter is that we have to deal what is real. In the case of the loss of Jera, I had to deal with the reality that my son no longer had a little sister. I remember the day he finally got home after the car accident. It occurred across state lines, and so it took him a couple of days for the hospitals to clear him and stuff. And when he finally got home, he fell into my arms, and the very first thing he said is, "Now who will I tell my secrets to?" And that's the stark reality. We have to deal with what is existent. I couldn't live in the fictional realm where my daughter survived. I had to come to the stark realization that my son was going to need additional assistance in dealing with things. Of course, my employer was able to cover counseling, and we were able to work through many of those issues. The irony is that my spouse didn't feel that she needed to go to counseling. She went so far as to say that counseling was for broken people, and she wasn't, by God, broken yet. So the point is that was a case where she fell into the imaginary because it felt normal. And there is nothing wrong with feeling normal about your imagination, but it can't be something that has no existence. So for in the case of my daughter and all of this, I do have to say that my faith community was strong. They were there with me right from the very first moment. They helped me deal with the grief and the rage that you initially feel, the negation that you go through. But when the rubber met the road, when the end of the day came, those faith community members still had their own lives, and they retreated to the comfort of their own space. And it was those of my friends that were game players, that were part of my role-playing community and part of my tabletop community, that really were essential in my survival because they were with me nonstop until I was able to work through the darkest part of that. And I can tell you the loss of a daughter is a devastating thing, and it's no fun. But imagination and creativity and innovation and wonder all still exist, even in the places where there are bad things that have happened. So therefore, this concept that imagination must be pummeled out of existence and driven into the dark places is precisely why we have such problems with certain graphic images, certain websites that are out there, because people can no longer allow themselves to imagine, because somehow imagination is dirty, dark, and to be put away from us. It should be driven into non-existence, and that's really a bad thing. Now, I also want you to stay away from this video because facts don't care about your feelings. Now, I get this phrase. I embrace this phrase in many ways. We do need to look at the reality in which we find ourselves. But the facts don't care about feelings is not the response that we should be giving to those issues where our imagination doesn't match with reality. We should be looking at how those pieces of our imagination that are enjoyable and enthusiastic and imaginative need to be really fomented. And so therefore, don't use the fact that facts are emotionless to drive emotion out of your lives. As a matter of fact, I would argue the very people that use this phrase are some of the more passionate people that I know in the world, because they are definitely advocating a series of facts that they know need to be reestablished in the world. And so I'm not choosing sides or picking a lane. Instead, I'm just saying that we need to recognize that our ability to feel, our ability to create imaginative options should still be considered valid, even if they are not tangible and measurable yet. Doesn't mean they can't be if we develop the methodology to improve that creativity. Now, you also definitely need to stay away from this video by all measures if you have any confidence issues. And by confidence issues, I mean you think you know, because it's fine to be confident. It's fine to be certain of your capabilities. But our world has made it so that confidence is fundamentally to be falsified. The most common phrase in the 80s and 90s was fake it till you make it. And there is an element of creativity in there, and we'll talk about that in particular. But the concept that we have to be false is the problem. We can embrace the reality, we can accept the reality, but we certainly can have an opinion that holds validity based on what we actually can do and what we have done, rather than immediately eliminate it because it was faked until we made it. Now, the issue is that you project your intention, act as if, only because the universe itself, the rest of people in the world, the rest of the reality, has to match itself up to our enthusiasm level. And so confidence isn't a faked premise. Instead, confidence is an exhibited condition. And that's really the difference. And our world definitely wants this phrase to be ignored. So by all means, don't watch this video, because if you watch this video, you might realize that you actually have some valid opinions that should be shared. And perhaps you are a YouTuber, or you are a person who works in a real retail store. Maybe you do have a message for the people that needs to be shared. My point is that the confidence that we have about the things that we can do should bolster us in those places when we find we're not quite there yet. But that doesn't mean that confidence has to be false. Now, this one, this is where I probably get on a little bit of a rough edge here. Do not watch this video at all if you enjoy things that are fun. Having said that, if the way that you derive your enjoyment is by watching other people fail, watching other people risk injury, there's an issue there, because the thought that fun can only be that which is provoked in us by emotion, by something else, is to miss the point. I enjoy every day. I am on here on YouTube as often as I can be because I enjoy sharing information. And I do believe that my pathway, if you will, is a better way. I've written 3 books on that subject, and the link for that is, of course, going to be down below. But the fact that fun can exist outside of the dangerous places of humor has to be realized. So if you are a person who loves to watch videos where mama fell off the roof and fell onto the rake and it only took 37 takes to record, be aware that that is not the only way to have fun. As a matter of fact, I know some people who list their only way to enjoy humor is through sarcasm, and I suggest that A, that's not true. You simply haven't been paying attention. Or B, it's the low-hanging fruit that falls in front of our faces, and our laughter doesn't necessarily mean we're enjoying ourselves. Our laughter could be our discomfort. More on that on a later video. But I do want to take some time and talk about Schadenfreude. Now, Schadenfreude is a German word for an emotional state that is hard to describe otherwise. And so by using one term, many people completely avoid the subject of dealing with it. But the concept of Schadenfreude is that feeling that we get when somebody has a problem that we somehow avoided. The idea here is, for example, we watch a sports athlete cause an error in baseball, and we love the fact that he missed that throw at second, and so our team got to score a run. So that's Schadenfreude. That's the feeling of joy we get when somebody else messes up. The Melanesian word banbanam fits it to me a little bit better, and I like the sound of banbanam, and it doesn't to me sound nearly as pretentious as Schadenfreude, because I didn't even include my umlaut, so I'm probably going to get a comment or two about that. But if you are a person who drives your greatest enjoyment in life out of Schadenfreude, I'm here to tell you let's limit that. It's certainly true that we take pleasure when we exult when we do something right and somebody else does something wrong. But do not, just like sarcasm, do not make it your primary source of entertainment, because when you do, you're automatically putting other people down, and it's unimaginative. Imagine instead every possible option where somebody doesn't have that problem, that everybody has a great day. I know it sounds crazy, but it's possible. And the more we focus on what's possible, the more in the realm of imagination we sometimes have to go, because things can get pretty dark. And the world is made so that we focus on that. I was reading something the other day, or I heard something the other day on another broadcast that said that the vast majority of human beings derive pleasure from watching true crime or other places where we get to see somebody get their comeuppance. And that, while arguably it is it's culturally pleasant, it's culturally damaging. So if you are a person that's doing that, you definitely don't want to watch this video, because I'm going to give you, here in the last point, an opportunity and a way to avoid utilizing these lower or base forms of humor. Now, the last point of this is probably the darkest. There was an ad campaign at some point in the past, and I believe it's still going on, that points out what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And the reason for this is that there are a lot of things that are scandalous or racy or unprovoked or Schadenfreudian that happen when you're in Vegas. And so the concept is these things are part of life, so just get used to them and let them stay. My point is that in the case of this, bam, sarcasm and such, the reality is there's another way to have fun, and that is to live, at least some of the time, within your imagination. And that's why role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games particularly, can be a particular danger. And our culture is systematically attempted to put it out of our minds. We see the characters of Critical Role or Big Bang Theory or Community who are involved in role play, and we're told to point our finger and laugh at them because those are damaged folk. But I can tell you from my experience that the people who have the most to gain in the world are those people who endeavor to attempt role play, because it gives them a chance to put out there the confidence that they actually have in themselves, but do it in a safe manner. We are in a place where the creativity allows for a yes and environment instead of a no but environment. And I'll do another entire video about that. If you want me to put that in the comments, let me know whether that's something you'd like to see. But my point here is that what happens on Terra stays on Terra. But the reality is what happens in a fantasy setting can be so much more rich, so much more real. I have a very good friend who has been a fan and a participant in my game sessions for closing in on, I think, 13 or 14 years. And the way she says it is best. She says, I exist here on Earth, but I live in the world of Nikos. And that's not to say the world of Nikos is anything but a fictional setting. What it is to say is that we can, through our interactions in a tabletop role-playing game, provide a more real interaction, a more desirable life than what we possibly have been dealt here on Earth, and that we should really endeavor, instead of running from and hiding from videos like this, we should be sharing this with everybody that we know, because this is how we get past those rough spots. This is how we engage when we are not able to engage. And there's so much more we could go into this subject, and I'll probably do more videos about this. But I did want to put out this one in particular to say, if you are not an imaginative person, if you're not a creative person, then whatever you do, if you want to keep that flat, dull, endless lack of immortality, by all means, don't watch this video. Definitely, whatever you do, don't share or comment, because if you share or comment, you might be letting your guard down and giving yourself an opportunity to actually have what Conan would say is best in life. But that's a completely other video, isn't it? All right, I'm Jonathan Albin. This has been Nikos RPG. I hope you got something from this. Again, like, subscribe, and more importantly, share this video with anybody who definitely thinks role-play games should not be played, and have them comment and have them feedback to me. I'll be glad to have that conversation. I've done it over decades. So I hope to see you all in the funny papers and the comments below. And as my grandfather would say, and does say if he were still here, go play!